Good day, folks. Everything new under the sun. Timeline of the return of the Lord. Are we getting near the first half of the 7 year period, the tribulation and the great tribulation? So, the tribulation, I believe, is the first 3.5 years of the 7 year period where the Antichrist is ruling, and also where the four horsemen of the apocalypse are riding, and everything that they are related to in Revelation chapter 6 is occurring. That includes wars, rumors of wars, a lot of death, famine, financial and economic collapse, and all those things described in Revelation chapter 6, the first 10 verses of that describe what the four horsemen of the apocalypse are bringing to the world. And that is not the wrath of God. The wrath of God is described further down in, I think it's verse 12 and onwards, after the sun and the moon go dark. Isn't it interesting that we have a solar eclipse happening in 2024? Well, is there significance to that solar eclipse? And it happens again a second time later to make an X on the U.S., interestingly, as a continent, but I won't go into that right now. I want to take a look at the Euphrates River and the fact that it could potentially indicate that we're very close to the first 3.5 years of the tribulation, because it's an event that occurs supposedly in the tribulation, or in the first 3.5 years. Now, if we go to this article here, this is Israel365news.com. Euphrates River hits historic lows, preparing for end of days. So there's scripture which indicates that the Euphrates River will dry up, and one of the items that it relates to is the Asians, or the Orient, the nations from the east, marching across seemingly a dried up riverbed, either supernatural or natural, whatever it may be, to go to battle against Israel. And is that happening? Well, yes. So this article is about this. The water level at the Takwa Dam on the Euphrates in Syria has plummeted to historic lows over the past 3 weeks, causing multiple crises in the region. And of course, throughout history, water has been the cause of many wars, many battles, many kingdom going against kingdom for water rights, or for the access to that. And they use it as well. They limit access to water, or they stop rivers, for example, to defeat an enemy, because you need water. Dwindling water resources threatens to worsen, it says, worsen food security in Syria, creating pressure that could contribute to new waves of refugees leaving the country. So it goes on to talk about 1,700 of miles of the Euphrates, longest, most historically important rivers in Western Asia. Turkey provides 98% of the Euphrates discharge and about 50% of the Tigris River's discharge. So Turkey controls a lot of this. Could they cut it off? They could cause a lot of trouble. And if they want to inflict pain on a country's downstream, they could cut that water off. Now, going down further, there's interesting information here where it speaks of the river playing a major role in Bible prophecy. And Isaiah promised that God would bring back the Jews from the Euphrates to the Wadi of Egypt. So Jeremiah described how the waters of Babylon, the region currently including Syria and Iraq, would dry up as a punishment for the idolatrous practices. Now, not wrath, but punishment. And the first 3.5 years, I think, is really the punishment that we inflict upon ourselves, the Satan against man, and punishment, in a way, for our sin in this world and what we've done. But it would dry up as a punishment for the idolatrous practices, the devastation being so complete as to render the region, once part of the so-called Fertile Crescent, uninhabitable. Now, isn't that an interesting word there, to use uninhabitable, because that's what Isaiah 17 says as it describes as it describes Damascus, the destruction of Damascus. It becomes a ruinous heap, uninhabitable. it goes on here. Jeremiah 50 verses 38 to 39. A drought against its waters, that they be dried up, for it is a land of idols. They are besotted by their dread images. Assuredly, wildcats and hyenas shall dwell there, and ostriches shall dwell there. It shall never be settled again, nor inhabited throughout the ages. That sounds very close to Isaiah 17, the destruction of Damascus. Go read those verses. There's quite a parallel there in terms of the complete destruction there, and simply animals are living there from that time going forward. So this particular prophecy apparently is in Islam and Christianity. Euphrates' role in the end times is cited in Islam and Christianity. The Quran states that the Mahdi, their Messiah, will not come before the Euphrates River dries up. And I believe this to be true as well. I believe Euphrates River dries up before Jesus Christ comes. Now, their Messiah is our Antichrist, and our Messiah is their Antichrist. So it's complete opposite in terms of understandings. But interesting that their Messiah, if this truly is the Antichrist they're talking about, that Antichrist is going to come before the Euphrates dries up. So if you want to read into it, I've done videos about Islam and the parallels to Christianity, and they kind of have backwards. Also, Judaism has a very interesting, similar prophetic timeline here. But yeah, in Islam, the Messiah is the Antichrist in the Christians' worldview, and the Christians' Antichrist is their Messiah. So that would confirm that this happens during the first 3.5 years of the 7-year period. So the Antichrist comes to power, and then the Euphrates River dries up in that first 3.5 years there, that first part, or the left side of the blue line there. And what they're saying is that the Euphrates River will dry up, unveiling a mountain of gold for which people will fight. Now that's interesting, is it? So a mountain of gold will be revealed. Would they be fighting over that if it was a barbarous relic, as the World Economic Forum and these sorts of people like to call gold? Maybe there's an economic collapse or famine going on that makes gold even more valuable. Maybe a complete economic collapse, and the world reserve currency of the world, the United States dollar, maybe has collapsed, which would cause the price of gold to skyrocket. Not because gold is more valuable, but because of the number of dollars to buy that gold. Those dollars are worthless, and so it takes many more, in orders of magnitude, to buy that same ounce of gold than it does now. So that's very interesting. A little bit of gold, and people scramble. They will fight for this. War will come out of this as people scramble. Now, what's happening in Ezekiel 38 and 39? Isn't it interesting that Gog and the land of Magog is marching with allied nations down to Israel to take a spoil, to take gold and silver, money and cattle. They're taking money and they're taking food. They're likely taking oil. They're taking everything they can. Why? Because there's probably economic collapse that just happened. So I think Ezekiel 38 and 39, Isaiah 17, destruction of Damascus, and this prophecy in Jeremiah about the Euphrates River drying up, I think it all happens, right in and around the time of that first 3.5 years. And maybe a couple of those prophecies, Ezekiel 38 and Isaiah 17, maybe they happen just prior to that, to really convince the world that they need a leader to correct all that's going on in the world. So that's very, very interesting. This is gotquestions.org, and the question here, great website by the way, the question here is, is the Euphrates drying up? Is that a sign of the end times? And they go and reference a couple different locations. They speak about prophecy being fulfilled during the Great Tribulation. That's Revelation chapter 16, the sixth bowl judgment. Indeed, that is in the kind of the right side of the chart in the Great Tribulation, also known as the wrath of God. So it is drying up there. But also in Revelation chapter 18, according to Revelation chapter 18, Babylon in the end times will do much commerce by ship, suggesting that the rivers in that area are freely flowing during the tribulation, at least for a while. So there's some point at which they dry up, whether it's because Turkey, the head nations of the headwaters do something about it. Or it could be supernatural as well. So Revelation chapter 16 refers to the armies from the east, the Orient, march westward. And of course, that hasn't happened yet. But if it does go dry, that would be convenient for, 200 million men marching army from the east, maybe, to march into Israel. So interesting references there. And there seems to be a correlation not only between Islamic eschatology, Christian eschatology, but also the Jeremiah verses and prophecies versus Ezekiel 38 and 39 and Isaiah 17. There's similar things happening. Go read the verses in the chapter there, and you'll see that similar economic conditions seem to be playing a part in the actions and what is described in those verses. So that's very fascinating. Now, so I will leave it there. Again, go check out Jeremiah chapter 50. Go read Ezekiel 38 and 39. Read the context there about what is happening in society. Why are they taking goods and cattle? Why are they taking all these things? If they simply want to conquer, they would just conquer the land and live in it. No, they're actually taking things that are of value. Maybe that's because we're in the middle of an economic collapse and a famine at the time, which would illustrate a time when the four horsemen of the apocalypse were riding. Go read Revelation chapter 6 to read about that. Okay, let's take a look at this. There is going to be a massive emergency alert test in the United States. This happens to be happening on October 4th. So it'll be interesting to see how this rolls out. They're going to send it to every cell phone, I guess, every connected electronic device. And telecom companies, have to provide this option to the government in the case of a national or statewide, provincial emergency, whatever it may be. And so they have access. Federal emergency management coordinators need to make sure that the national alert system is still an effective way to warn Americans about emergencies, natural catastrophes, attacks, and accidents at the national level. Attacks? Because of war, maybe China or Russia or something like that. And accidents, the first thing I thought of was nuclear accidents. Could that very well be the case? So October 4th, look for that. That's very, very interesting. These things do occur. This has happened in Canada. And this happened in Canada on during the emergency week, May 8th to 12th, Emergency Preparedness Week in Canada. And or in November, I guess maybe they're going to do another one in November, but I haven't seen the news about it. But most Canadians, it says, will receive an alert on their cell phones. Thankfully, I don't have a cell phone, so they're not going to be able to get me. Interesting, again, that they can contact, at the push of a button, every single cell phone. Did you know there will come a time when the Antichrist will be seen by all the people of the world? And they'll maybe see the signs and wonders. Will he have access to this emergency system where he can all of a sudden start live streaming or sending alerts about something that's going on, and the whole world will see the things happening in the last days? And this idea of the two witnesses, the whole world sees the two witnesses. What they're doing is broadcast, and will the whole world be notified by way of their cell phone or their device at the time that stuff is going on? We live in a connected world, and that is very possible. But again, you just wonder how much control the government really does have in terms of pushing out to every electronic device. And they know where you are at every second of the day, because they can triangulate that or even just triangulate it via the cell phone towers, or know simply by the GPS chips in your phone. They know exactly where you are when you're at home, and there's all sorts of ways. Even if you don't have a cell phone, if you're using the internet at the time, there's data. There's all sorts of data trails. They can tell when you're home because they see your internet usage is going up, right? So they can tell where you are, when, and what device you're using. So this one has happened across the various provinces and territories of Canada during the week of May, and possibly another one in November. So we'll see what comes of that, but that's interesting. This one, I will leave the headline there. You can read the headline. So this new thing coming out could cause trouble for people who it shouldn't cause trouble for. Huh. Okay. Well, that's interesting, right? So that's the next new fear factor thing coming out is this. What will that mean for you and I? Masks, lockdown. Um, yeah, this is coming again. They're doing it all over again, and Biden is pushing for the you know what again, all over again. So I hope this doesn't come again. I hope the politicians, the medical community, I hope they push back and say we don't need this. We've already dealt with this. But they could implement it. The government can do what they want. The government has so much control, and people are so scared to push back on any of this at this point in time. Again, people just want to live fat, dumb, and happy. They just want to go on with their lives. They want to get things over as soon as possible. They want to rely on the government for their peace, for their safety. And you know what? The saying goes that people will readily, quickly, in an easy manner, give up their freedom for safety. If the government can provide them safety, the people will give up their freedom. That means giving up the choice to do this or that, giving up the choice to have these things or not have them. You give up your freedom for safety. And that's what the people of the West have done. That's what people of the world are doing and have done. And this is a bad thing because then you give control to some potentially bad players. And as we march into the time of the Antichrist and the four horsemen of the apocalypse, total global control will be given over to this Antichrist figure. But I think only at a time when things get so bad that the people of the world will say, please give us a savior. We need a savior. But of course, they won't look to Jesus Christ. They will repeat history, just like the Jews did. They will call for a king instead of recognizing God and giving God the glory. They will recognize a human in the place of God and put all their eggs in that basket. And to their downfall, to their demise. So, Euphrates River, we're getting very close to that. It is drying up as we speak. That means, by Muslim eschatology, Islamic eschatology, Christian eschatology, and others, that seems to suggest that we are close to that 3.5-year period. We may not be even months away from the setup for that, basically. And as always, the high watch period of Rosh Hashanah, the moving into a new Jewish year, is coming up. So pay attention, folks. Keep your eyes peeled. Read all sorts of information. Don't take the first source of information as the quote-unquote gospel, as they say. Question everything. Follow the science, as John Campbell says. You need to be aware. You need to make your own decisions. Don't let other people make decisions for you. This is the whole idea of giving up your freedom for security. That's what people did when they blindly followed the government's dictates and directives related to the last cough cough event. All right, so take into account your own security, your own health, and you will keep your freedom if you do that. So thanks for watching. I'll leave it there. We'll see you in the next video.